What if the solution to one problem created an even bigger disaster? Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's exactly what happened when Japan introduced a snake killer to a peaceful island, and believe it or not, things went horribly wrong.
It is actually possible to drastically suppress the numbers of snakes in a forest by the dropping of baits from helicopters, baits composed of a dead neonatal mouse that has a tablet of acetaminophen glued to it.
It started as a simple plan: bring mongooses to the island to solve a deadly snake problem. But 25 years later, the result shocked everyone. The mongooses didn't just ignore the snakes, they turned their sights on endangered species and left behind a trail of destruction. And that's just the beginning. In this video, we're diving into Japan's wild battle against invasive species, from the mongoose disaster to the venomous redback spider, and even an unstoppable sea creature that's destroying oceans. Plus, we'll explore how other invasive species around the world are causing chaos. Get ready, because things are about to get wild. 1. Japan's fight against killer mongooses. Back in the 1970s, Japanese officials came up with a bold plan. They decided to introduce mongooses to the island of Amami Oshima. The idea was simple. These little fast-moving animals would help get rid of the habu, a venomous snake that was causing a lot of problems for the locals. But what started as a well-meaning solution quickly spiraled into a bigger problem than anyone expected. On paper, the plan looked solid. Mongooses are known to be tough little creatures, able to withstand venom, and they were expected to hunt down the habu, whose bite could be deadly to humans. So, about 30 mongooses were released into the wild, and everyone waited for them to take care of the snake problem. But things didn't go according to plan. Here's what went wrong. While mongooses might be able to handle venom, they have a very different schedule than the snakes. Habu are nocturnal, meaning they're active at night. But mongooses, they're fast asleep during those hours. And when the mongooses woke up, instead of hunting down the snakes, they found an easier target: the Amami rabbit. This rabbit, only found on Amami Oshima and one other island, was already struggling to survive, and the arrival of mongooses put them in even greater danger. Instead of attacking the snakes as planned, the mongooses started preying on these rabbits, driving their numbers down even further. By 2000, the mongoose population had exploded to around 10,000, putting not just the rabbits but other native species at risk. Realizing the mess they'd created, the Japanese government launched a massive operation to get rid of the mongooses. Over the next 25 years, they worked hard to remove them, even using trained sniffer dogs to track them down. After years of effort, the island was finally declared mongoose-free. While this saved the Amami rabbit, the whole situation served as a reminder of how even the best ideas can go wrong when humans try to control nature. But this was just one chapter in Japan's ongoing battle against invasive species. While the mongoose problem might have been resolved, another invader was already making its way across the country: the dangerous redback spider. 2. Japan versus the redback spider. In 1995, another threat arrived in Japan: the redback spider. At first, no one thought much of it, but as the years went on, this venomous spider started spreading across the country, hiding in dark corners, sheds, and even playgrounds. While redback spiders aren't aggressive by nature, their bites can be incredibly painful and even life-threatening, especially for young children and older adults. The spider, easily recognized by its black body and red stripe on its back, quickly became a concern for the Japanese public. By the early 2000s, these spiders had been found in 45 prefectures across Japan, and people were starting to worry. Though there weren't a lot of bite cases, the few that happened sparked fear, especially when reports from Australia, where the redback comes from, mentioned deaths from untreated bites. This growing threat pushed Japan to pass a new law called the Invasive Alien Species Act. The law wasn't just about the spiders. It was designed to deal with any foreign species that posed a risk to Japan's environment and public health. Thanks to this law, the government was able to take serious action to control the spread of redback spiders. Anti-venoms were developed to treat bites, and the public was educated on what to do if they encountered one of these dangerous spiders. Despite all these efforts, though, the redback spider remains a problem in Japan. Its bite, while rarely deadly, continues to cause pain and anxiety for those who come across it. Even after dealing with the mongoose and the redback spider, Japan isn't the only place fighting against invasive species. Across the world, ecosystems are under threat, and one of the most damaging invaders doesn't crawl or slither, it swims. Imagine a fish so hungry and fast-growing that it can turn a thriving lake into a dead zone. That's the story of the Asian carp, a fish that's been wreaking havoc in waterways across the globe. 3. The rise of overpopulated Asian carp. This all started back in the 1960s and 70s when Asian carp were introduced to ponds and lakes in North America. They were supposed to help control the overgrowth of aquatic plants and snails. Seemed like a good idea at the time, right? But no one predicted what would come next. These carp are not picky eaters. They don't just munch on plants and snails, they go after plankton, the building block of the aquatic food chain. When they eat too much plankton, there's not enough left for the native fish species. This sets off a chain reaction that can wipe out entire ecosystems. But it doesn't stop there. Asian carp are messy eaters. As they feed, they stir up the bottom of lakes and rivers, turning once clear waters into muddy, murky environments. This makes it even harder for other species to survive. Fish that once thrived in these lakes struggle to find food or even breathe in the newly clouded waters. By the early 2000s, the situation had gotten so bad that drastic measures were taken to stop the spread of these carp. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers started building electric fish barriers in canals, like the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal, to stop the carp from reaching the Great Lakes. Scientists knew that if these fish made it into the Great Lakes, the results could be disastrous, both for the environment and the industries that rely on those waters. Even with the electric barriers in place, the carp kept spreading. Illinois officials went as far as using a fish poison, hoping to stop the carp in their tracks. They treated areas with the chemical, but the problem didn't go away. The carp were still out there, breeding and taking over. The battle isn't just about fish, though. It's also about people. Shipping companies didn't want the canals closed, while environmentalists pushed hard to protect the Great Lakes. It was clear that this invasive species wasn't going to be easy to control. The fight against the Asian carp has shown just how hard it is to control an invasive species once it takes hold. But while efforts to stop the carp continue, there's another predator silently causing chaos in the deep. And this one? It's not just a problem in freshwater, it's wreaking havoc in the ocean. 4. The aggressive northern Pacific sea star. If the Asian carp turning lakes into murky wastelands sounds bad, wait until you hear about the northern Pacific sea star. This sea creature, also known as Asterias amurensis, is a relentless predator that eats almost anything in its path. Native to the waters around China, Japan, and Korea, it's found its way into new oceans and is causing massive destruction. How did these sea stars end up far from their home waters? It's all thanks to ships. As large vessels travel across the seas, they take in ballast water to stay balanced. Along with that water, they sometimes pick up small marine creatures like the northern Pacific sea star. When the ships release that water at their next stop, these unwanted passengers are set loose in new environments where they can thrive. These sea stars are voracious eaters. They devour everything from shellfish to endangered species like the spotted handfish. And the scariest part? They multiply at an unbelievable rate. In some areas, their numbers have grown to 12 million in just 2 years. This sudden population boom wipes out other marine life, leaving behind what can only be described as an underwater wasteland. Spotting a northern Pacific sea star isn't too hard. They can grow up to 50 centimeters wide, with 5 arms that turn upward at the tips. Their color ranges from yellow to reddish, and their arms are covered with sharp, jagged spines. They can live in shallow waters or deep estuaries and are incredibly tough, surviving in all kinds of conditions. What makes them so dangerous is not just their hunger, but their adaptability. In places like Australia, where they've become a huge problem, their numbers explode, then crash when they've eaten all the food. But by the time their population drops, the damage has already been done. Controlling this invader has been a huge challenge. Their ability to adapt and reproduce quickly makes them nearly impossible to fully eradicate, and the risk they pose to marine life is constantly growing. It's a tough battle, and one that keeps raising the same question. How do you stop a nearly unstoppable invader? As the battle against the northern Pacific sea star continues in the deep, the fight to control invasive species isn't limited to the oceans. On land, another threat has been spreading far and wide, and this time, It's not just a matter of survival, it's a matter of life and death for any animal that dares to challenge it. 5. The toxic threat of the cane toad. Imagine a creature so toxic that anything trying to eat it ends up dead. That's exactly the case with the cane toad, a poisonous amphibian from northern South America, Central America, and Mexico. In its native habitat, the cane toad fits right in. Its predators there have built up a tolerance to its toxins. But when the cane toad was introduced to other parts of the world, the results were devastating. The cane toad's defense is simple but deadly. It secretes a toxic ooze from glands behind its head. Predators unfamiliar with the toad's danger learn the hard way. One bite is all it takes to be poisoned. As a result, the cane toad has been able to spread without much resistance. It all started in 1935 when sugarcane farmers in Australia decided to bring around 2,400 cane toads to northern Queensland. The idea was to use them to control cane beetles that were damaging the sugarcane crops. At first glance, it seemed like a smart solution, but what the farmers didn't realize was that the cane toad would soon become an even bigger problem than the beetles. With no natural enemies and an incredible ability to breed, the cane toad population exploded. They spread across northeastern Australia, and now their numbers are in the millions. The toads breed all year long, laying their eggs in almost any body of fresh water they can find. In just 10 days, those eggs turn into tadpoles, and soon after, fully grown toads. This rapid reproduction has allowed cane toads to settle wherever the climate and water conditions are right. But it's not just their numbers that are concerning. The toads have been poisoning Australia's native wildlife for decades. Many animals, including snakes, birds, and mammals, have died after trying to eat these toxic invaders. On top of that, cane toads also compete with native frogs for food and shelter, making life even harder for local species. Despite efforts to control their population, the cane toads continue to spread. The cane toad's toxic reign over Australia is a harsh reminder of what happens when nature's balance is thrown off by an invasive species. However, not all wildlife conflicts are caused by outsiders. Sometimes, even a native species can stir up trouble, leading to a bitter standoff between humans and animals. 6. England's badger. Conundrum, friend or foe? In the rolling hills and peaceful countryside of England, a hidden conflict is taking place. This time, it's between farmers and badgers. These sturdy little animals with their recognizable black and white striped faces have long been cherished as part of Britain's natural heritage. But now, they're at the center of a heated debate, all because of a disease affecting cattle, bovine tuberculosis, or TB. European badgers, part of the mustelid family, which includes otters and wolverines, are usually shy and live in underground homes called setts. These setts are large tunnel systems where badger families, or clans, live together. Even though they share a home, badgers don't hunt or share food. They each go out on their own to find food like worms, insects, and small animals. For a long time, badgers were seen as a symbol of the peaceful English countryside. But as their population grew, so did a problem: bovine tuberculosis. This disease affects cattle, and badgers are one of the main carriers that can pass it on to livestock. For farmers, bovine TB is a nightmare. It forces them to lose cattle, spend money on culling, and deal with strict rules on moving their animals. This has made many farmers call for the badger population to be controlled. In response, the UK government allowed badger culling in areas with high TB infection rates in cattle. But this decision has caused a lot of anger from animal rights groups, who believe badgers are being unfairly targeted and killed. The situation is complicated because it's still unclear how much of a role badgers play in spreading TB. While they can carry the disease, it's not certain if they're the main cause of its spread among cattle. So now badgers, once loved and admired, are caught in the middle of a major controversy. Farmers want to protect their livelihoods, while others want to save the badgers. The question remains, how can England manage this tricky situation without harming either the wildlife or the farming industry? Right now, there's no clear answer in sight. As the debate over England's badgers rages on, it's clear that even beloved local species can become a source of conflict when they pose a threat to farming and public health. But what happens when an invader arrives unnoticed, slowly destroying its host from the inside out? The next culprit doesn't target livestock, it attacks trees, and it's leaving a trail of destruction in forests and cities alike. 7. The Asian longhorned beetle. The Asian longhorned beetle, a native of China, Japan, and Korea, has earned a fearsome reputation as one of the most destructive pests in the world. Known for boring into the inner wood of hardwood trees, this beetle is a silent killer. It spends most of its life as a larva, feeding on the cambium layer, the part of the tree that helps it grow and stay healthy. Over time, this feeding weakens the tree until it eventually dies, leaving nothing but a path of destruction in its wake. First spotted in New York in 1996, experts believe the beetle arrived in the US as far back as the 1980s. It likely hitched a ride in wooden packing material shipped from China. Since then, infestations have popped up in places like Massachusetts, Illinois, New Jersey, and even Canada and parts of Europe. The danger this beetle poses is massive, especially in the eastern US, where it threatens 30 to 35% of urban trees. If it isn't stopped, the damage could cost tens of billions of dollars. To control the beetle's spread, strict quarantine measures are in place, and in some cases, infected trees have to be cut down and burned. These drastic steps are necessary because the beetle spreads quickly. Adults emerge after just a week as pupae and can travel more than 1,400 meters in a single season. In its native China, the devastation caused by the Asian longhorned beetle is already well known. In some regions, up to 40% of poplar tree plantations have been destroyed, forcing the removal of millions of trees. The beetle's adaptability to different climates only makes it harder to control. If left unchecked, it could wreak havoc on North American and European forests and cities for years to come, turning once vibrant landscapes into barren, lifeless spaces. And just when you think things couldn't get worse, there's yet another invader on the horizon, one that's striking fear in the hearts of wildlife officials across the globe. As the Asian longhorned beetle continues to chew its way through forests and cities, another tiny but deadly invader is making its presence known. And this one is buzzing straight into our backyards. It's small, fast, and more dangerous than most people realize. 8. The Asian tiger mosquito. The Asian tiger mosquito might seem like just another annoying insect, but it's far more than just a pest. Native to Southeast Asia, this tiny mosquito has spread around the world, hitching rides in old tires that collect rainwater, perfect breeding spots for mosquitoes. With it, this mosquito has brought some of the most dangerous diseases known to humans, including dengue fever, West Nile virus, and Japanese encephalitis. What makes the Asian tiger mosquito so dangerous is its aggressive biting behavior and ability to carry diseases that can jump from animals to humans. This means it doesn't just bite, it can also pass on deadly viruses, making it one of the top vectors for diseases like chikungunya and dengue, which have already caused local outbreaks in Europe. Places like France, Italy, and Croatia have all seen the effects of this mosquito's rapid spread. These mosquitoes are tough survivors. They can live in a wide range of environments, and as global temperatures rise, their reach is expanding into new areas. If they aren't kept under control, we could see outbreaks of mosquito-borne diseases in once safe places. To stop their spread, areas where they're newly detected need to act fast, sterilizing mosquito populations or setting up quarantines. If left unchecked, the Asian tiger mosquito could become an even bigger threat to public health worldwide. But while this tiny mosquito is dangerous, it's not the only sneaky invader making waves. Another silent predator is slithering its way through the Pacific, leaving a trail of destruction in its path. 9. The brown tree snake. The brown tree snake is a quiet killer, slipping into ecosystems and causing damage where it's least expected. This snake, originally from Australia, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands, made its way to the island of Guam after World War II, likely stowing away in military cargo. And once it arrived, it didn't waste any time making itself at home. First spotted on Guam in 1953, the brown tree snake has since wiped out much of the island's native bird and lizard populations. Many of these species were essential for pollinating plants, and with them gone, the island's plants have also suffered. This ripple effect has thrown Guam's ecosystem off balance, all because of one invasive snake. The brown tree snake is a perfect invader. Its long, flexible body allows it to climb trees and rocks easily, while its excellent night vision makes it a top predator in the dark. These snakes can grow up to 3 meters long and are skilled hunters, wrapping around their prey and using their mild venom to finish the job. The biggest worry now is that these snakes could spread to other nearby islands, causing the same destruction they did in Guam. They've already driven 2 bird species on Guam to extinction, and if they make it to other islands, the consequences could be devastating. As we've seen with other invasive species, it doesn't take much for a single predator to tip an entire ecosystem off balance. And with more cargo moving between islands, the risk of these snakes spreading is growing every day. As the brown tree snake continues to silently devastate ecosystems, we're reminded that not all invaders slither through forests or skies. Some, like the Chinese mitten crab, scuttle through rivers and bays, leaving a trail of destruction wherever they go. 10. The Chinese mitten crab. The Chinese mitten crab is named for its distinctive bristle-covered claws, which make it look like it's wearing tiny mittens. But these cute-looking claws are attached to one of the most troublesome invaders to come out of East Asia. Originally from China, this crab has now spread far beyond its native waters, causing serious problems in Europe and North America, especially along the US West Coast. It was in the early 1990s when mitten crabs were first spotted in San Francisco Bay. Fishermen noticed them tangled in their nets, and within a few years, their numbers exploded. By the year 2000, hundreds of thousands of these crabs were found, not just in the bay, but also 300 kilometers inland, spreading quickly through rivers and waterways. One of the worst things about the Chinese mitten crab is how it burrows into riverbanks and flood levees. This digging weakens the land, leading to erosion and even flooding in some areas. These crabs also have a habit of migrating upstream in huge numbers to breed, which disrupts local ecosystems and pushes out native species. Fishermen often find their traps invaded by mitten crabs that steal bait and eat the fish inside, leading to big losses for the fishing industry. You can spot a Chinese mitten crab by its hairy claws and wide carapace, which is covered in small teeth-like ridges. In places like San Francisco Bay, their growing population has been a major problem for both the environment and industries that rely on clean, stable waterways. While some attempts have been made to stop their spread, like Operation Mitten Catcher, which prevented the illegal import of thousands of live crabs, the mitten crab is still a persistent invader. Just like the mitten crab has upset the balance in many waterways, another seemingly helpful species has turned out to be an even bigger nightmare. 11. The carnivorous rosy wolf snail. The rosy wolf snail was supposed to be a hero, a biological solution to stop the spread of another invasive species, the giant African snail. But things didn't go according to plan, and this hungry predator soon became one of the most dangerous creatures to fragile ecosystems across the Indian and Pacific Ocean islands. In the 1950s, this snail was brought to islands like Hawaii, the Philippines, and French Polynesia to control the giant African snail population. The idea was simple: let one snail eat the other. But there was a problem. The rosy wolf snail didn't just go after its intended target. It turned its attention to native snails, many of which had evolved in isolation over millions of years. One of the hardest hit victims was the partolid tree snail of French Polynesia. These unique snails, which lived in the valleys of the islands, were wiped out by the wolf snail's relentless hunting. Many species of partolid snails are now extinct in the wild, surviving only in zoos or conservation programs. The rosy wolf snail's introduction is now considered one of the worst decisions in biological control history. The rosy wolf snail isn't just any snail. It's a fast and efficient predator with a large, thick, brownish-pink shell that can grow up to 10 centimeters long. Its streamlined, fusiform shape makes it a deadly hunter in the world of mollusks. And once it started reproducing, its population grew quickly, spreading across islands and devastating local ecosystems. Although it was supposed to target the giant African snail, the wolf snail's real impact has been felt by native species. Conservationists now warn against using non-native species as solutions to ecological problems. So, what do you think? Can we ever really control invasive species once they've taken over? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into nature's unexpected disasters, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mind-blowing content. We've got plenty more stories coming your way, so make sure to ring that notification bell, and we'll see you in the next video.